Righto, Will, you might have to stop lollygagging and come up to the front. Thank you. And I know everyone heard me call Will Wilbur before. I don't think Will's real name is Wilbur. It's probably William, but this is Will Onus. So thank you, everyone, for attending this session. Actually, Will, apparently we're going to sit down there.
Oh, great. Like that. Certainly am like that.
So if you go and sit there, I'll introduce you,
and
then I'll be down there. Okay. So everyone, thank you for attending this session. Will and I are going to be sitting down there. Hopefully you can still see us all. So I will now just get off this microphone so our good man Stephen at the back of the room can swap us over. Okay. Here we are.
Have a seat, Ange.
Thanks,
Welcome
Will.
to Will's Sustainability Corner.
Welcome to my parlour, said the spider to the fly. Okay, righto. Well, look, thanks everyone, and thanks for being here, Will. I guess what we're broadly talking about today is the relationship that the Landcare Ag program has with Ruminati, as well as obviously the background of the Ruminati program. So we've been lucky enough with Landcare Ag. We've been working with you for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Through the evolution of Ruminati, and Ruminati, Will and Bobby have been really generous with, I guess they've wanted feedback from our producers and our facilitators about this question. So as Will and Bobby and their team have been evolving Ruminati, we've been sort of guinea pigging a little bit with them, as in, let's work with you and work with the producers and find out what the busting questions are and actually how's this program working and getting the feedback. So look, what I'm going to do, I think to start, I'll hand over to you, Will. Oh, actually, I should have bought that pointer thing, shouldn't I? You hang on to that. Sorry. I'll go back there.
Well-rehearsed outfit. Thanks, Ange. While you're doing that, thank you for having us here today. Thanks to the Landcare outfit for all the support, Rabobank for their support today and with us. And I think thanks to whoever put the carbon accounting thing on the last day after lunch. That was really clever too. I've watched the numbers just slowly dwindle down as we go. I think I'm a cattle producer by trade. I'm not an environmentalist. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an accountant. And myself and my business partner who started the company, I guess, were so confused by all of the noise and different things that we had to now do to be compliant or sell our product as cattle producers in southern New South Wales. Wanted a platform that was simple to use and probably took a sympathetic approach to producers and probably a sympathetic approach to agriculture and had a bottom-up solution that was actually tailored to people that are in the production side of things as opposed to the accounting side of things. In doing that, we learned a lot. As Ange said, I think we definitely don't have all the answers. I don't think anyone has all the answers, and this is an iterative process. It's the first time for most businesses, whether that's at the corporate reporting end or a farming business that's doing this. And so we're very much a learning organisation that's trying to build a platform and a solution that's relevant both to the production end of the supply chain and the corporate reporting end of the supply chain. And so the emissions reporting piece, over time, one of the learnings that we've had is emissions, and we'll jump to this in a moment, but emissions reporting is really around farm productivity and efficiency. And whilst an emissions intensity number of 12.6 kilograms for every kilogram of beef produced might not mean much to us as producers, there's a lot of intrinsic information in there that we can understand about our businesses and then also understand about our sector and where we can make progress and improve, not only as producers, but also as people that are selling product all around the world. And we are seeing more and more expectations and pressure around what are we doing, whether that's in the biodiversity space or in the natural capital space or in the emissions space. And I'd suggest a lot of people here at this conference today are doing a lot. And we wanted a simple way to communicate that, and communicate that with a level of confidence. I think it's one thing to say, hey, I'm a good producer and I'm doing the right thing. We need to prove it empirically, and we need to be able to demonstrate that at a level that could be used in sustainability reporting by our customers, be that JBS or be that our financial partners. And to do that, we needed not just a calculator, not just the thing that sits on your desktop and you use it once a year. It needs to be something a little bit more interactive and offer a little bit more value, we believe, back to those people that are using it, which is all of us in the production end of the supply chain. And this was the biggest thing that just smacks us in the face every time we look at it. In the data set now, which is over a few thousand users, we can see a really clear relationship between those businesses that are highly efficient and productive and the emissions intensity associated with their product, whether that's cotton or dairy or beef or lamb. We work across multiple commodities, and this stands true for every data set that we analyse. And so as much as it is about sustainability, it's a pretty broad term in my opinion, and sustainability also means driving productivity and driving profitability. And lo and behold, that also is really a proxy for emissions intensity and the amount of CO2e that you're producing in your business. So and again, I don't feel that the Ruminati platform or solution has got there yet, but our aspiration is to be able to talk to business owners about where the opportunities are in their business and then help them with their compliance and reporting for, again, everyone upstream of them that has this compliance headache. But a really strong relationship and a benefit, we think, we're pretty sure, around farm productivity and emissions intensity. And maybe if I'm making some assumptions, but I think everyone's across the terminology. We can come back to that later if that's confusing everyone. But how efficient you are with your production system is of great value to the rest of the sector. And maybe, Ange, yeah, I can speak a little bit, but you're probably better positioned to speak on this. But just the really exciting thing that's developing here is a federal standard, so a unifying standard across all agricultural commodities for the accounting side of things, which is probably about as exciting as it sounds, but it actually is pretty handy because it allows everyone to have consistency in reporting. One of the challenges that we've found and our customers have found and our users have found is you could put the same set of data into 3 different calculators and get 3 different outputs, and that's not good for anyone. So the forthcoming standard will allow for consistency, and there's just going to be one way to account for all of these different things in all these different commodities. That's really exciting, and I think the way that the sector can then move beyond measurement to action and reductions in activity, which is kind of what we're all here to do, this will be a big step forward. So we're really excited about that. But Ange, you've also got a great take on all of this.
Yeah, no, thanks, Will. And I guess that's what is changing piece, as Will's explained from the Ruminati end. It's also from the Landcare end and the producer end. So as the government regulations become enforcing this more upon our producers, it means that at Landcare, if we're working with producers that can understand their emissions, we can use that information to build our case. So we are good at Landcare at telling stories. We've got a really long history of that. But actually we need good data to back those stories up. So this is one of the methods that we'll be able to capture more data. And we've looked at, I guess the thing to say is there's a few calculators around. I wouldn't say there's not. And we're not saying, certainly at Landcare, that Ruminati is the one and only, or even it's the gold standard. I don't know, but there's some good calculators. The point is that where the industry is now, producers need to be engaging in this to start to understand it, because we talk about the fact that right now there's a bit of a carrot situation. Offer the carrot, that carrot's going to become a great big waddy before too long. So you're going to be forced to engage with this. So one of the calculators is Ruminati, and we've been working with some producers around that because it's one that actually works for quite a lot of our producers. We're not saying it's the only one. I mean, I love an Excel spreadsheet. It's one of my great things I love to do, but some of the emissions calculators, even though I love an Excel spreadsheet, can look a little bit daunting. So if if an emissions calculator you're looking at might not work for you, don't just walk away and think this is not for me. There might be another one that works for you. And so that's one of the reasons we're working with Ruminati, is that for some producers, it's a great tool and a great start. And I guess a question is, if you're, I don't know how many producers we've got in the room, I can see a couple. Who in the room here is actually pretty confident about an idea about their emissions profile? Cool, good to see. Is there anyone in the room that is a bit, that really isn't confident about that and knows they, that is not confident about understanding their emissions? Cool, yep. That's pretty standard, isn't it? So I guess what we're saying is I think we could get into a debate, and they do come up a bit, where it's like, oh, well, this one is good and that one's not good and, et cetera. That's fine. But the point being, actually, you probably need to start somewhere. We're not saying that it has to be Ruminati, but you need to start somewhere. Where you start doesn't need to be exactly where you finish, but you do need to start doing this at some stage. So we've had some really great meetings with the Ruminati team, with groups all around Australia, and one we had last week or the week before, I think it was with a group in WA, and they were some of our rangelands producer groups can be quite sensitive about retrofitting, can't they, Ian? They're like, oh, is this being developed in a high rainfall area in a 5-acre farm and you're expecting it to be relevant to us? I mean, we're not like that, really, are we, Ian? But we are, but this producer group, no, they're really good, but they were sort of like, is this really going to work for us? And they actually had a really good session where they could ask all the hard questions. There's no obligation. Ruminati, it's neither here nor there to Ruminati or to Landcare Ag if people engage, but we want to give them the opportunity to think it through and decide whether they will or not. So with Landcare Australia and Landcare Ag, we need to collect data to continue to get funding for our programs of work, to prove that we're doing good work, how this is impacting our emissions, and for us to keep applying for funding and receiving funding, we need some data to show the impact that we're having. So this is where this Ruminati relationship is very helpful for us and for our producers. It's sort of we're being attacked from both ends at Landcare. We sort of need this data for our programs of work, but we also need the data to actually apply for future funding for future programs of work. So, it's an interesting situation, and it is kind of data is king. Well, it needs to be important. Like, stories are fine, but you need the data to back them up and enforce what's happening.
I'd just add to that, Ange, again, back to that notion of, I don't think that there's a lot of, the calculation, the measurement isn't the end game. We made the calculation free to anyone that wants to go on and do it, because it's actually about what you do with the calculation. And so as much as we can take the focus and pressure and kind of off-ramps away from measurement and move it more towards practice change and hopefully opportunities that fall out of that in the marketplace, that's the goal. That's really the intention. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the sort of the point of this slide, I guess. This is, we want to support producers to have the data to make informed decisions. So it will help them with that data, and it helps Landcare to get some industry and geographical scale data. We can have data around, wool, around beef, around a particular region, and cross that data over. And the other interesting thing that we've done, so the data is useful to Landcare Australia as part of this, but we've also got an opt-out and opt-in piece on this relationship, because we discussed the fact that some producers are a bit wary about supplying data to, other people, even Landcare Australia. So we've actually got a button there that says, you can opt out or opt in. If you don't want your data to be part of the Landcare Australia data set, and even we would never publish that data with anyone's name on it, would only ever be de-identified and etc. But if that producer's just like, I don't want to do this, they can opt out, because we at Landcare and Ruminati, we'd rather producers feel confident to jump in, start to understand their emissions and use that platform, even if we don't get to see or understand the data. We want the producers to engage with that.
And I think the future state of this is that the data, if emissions reporting is mandated and becomes part of our general kind of landscape of running agricultural businesses, we believe that data will have a value. And we don't want to be in the habit of giving that away without a level of negotiation or a level of kind of benefit to those people that are running those businesses, typically producers. And so the system, whether it's ours or someone else's, needs to reward practice change, and that needs to be measurable in the form of verified data. But yeah, we don't think that that's just a freebie for everyone else to claim and report on their reductions if they haven't been involved on the journey. So the platform is very much designed to protect the permissions of the user, being the feedlotter or the dairy farmer or the farm or the beef farmer, and you have the choice to share that information with whomever and also turn it off. I'm no longer supplying company ABC, I'm over here now, turn that data off and I'm now sharing with them. So it is a really, really important aspect of where this all goes, is data sovereignty, and then I think it becomes a commodity which is worth something.
What's your NFF data safety code?
Yeah, National Farmers Federation Data Security Codes. I think we're one of 11 organisations that have that accreditation. And, you know, I think that just needs to be a prerequisite, yeah.
And it's a very safe, high-quality data code, because didn't someone try and make a breach the other day and basically it was almost...
Not a lot of success.
No, exactly. So that's good to know for our producers.
Yeah.
You know, they've, you know, got the highest code that we have in agriculture in Australia for data safety. So, yeah, and I guess we look at it like, imagine, you know, it is having this data and understanding this data is really important for us. For producers to get insights into what they can do. A nice thing about the Ruminati tool is the vision element where, you know, you put your data in. Even putting the data into the system for producers has been interesting. Like, it actually helps educate them. That's the data I, you know, like that's been an education process. But then they can actually, as part of it, put that data in and then go, I wonder what would happen if I sold that tractor and bought another 50 cows, or if I sold my breeding ewes and, you know, put a tree lane in, for example. Like, you can do all this modelling and just have a look. And it is modelling. All of this stuff is modelling. We know that. But it gives you a much clearer idea than just having a broad, I've got no idea at all. And it's really interesting, you know, just doing that, isn't it? It's like, you know, changing enterprise mixes and things like that and looking at how that impacts your number.
Yeah, and I think the ability to test scenarios, and I think one of the themes here is I don't think anyone has all the answers, and so be very wary of people that are telling you they do, because they haven't really even agreed on half of the science and methodology. So, but what is helpful is to say, what happens if I increase my stocking rate? What happens if I use synthetic fertiliser? We had a customer, a user, that was going to invest a lot of money on a solar facility on the farm, and it turned out that wasn't really going to move the dial for them, because most of their emissions came from fertiliser, and so locking up some backcountry to put down to trees at a fraction of the cost moved the dial much more for them. So it's just that ability to look into the future with your data as opposed to national averages and kind of top-down approach. That's been really helpful.
And it is, you know, like the data, like, you know, you have to put good quality data in, but it certainly is a pretty efficient and smooth way to do it through the Ruminati platform and working with producers. So it is a platform worth considering for those people who haven't even engaged at all. So I guess what are we learning across the last 3 years, I suppose, for Landcare's engagement with Ruminati is that simplicity is the key. So producers and their facilitators and consultants, this needs to be in a language we all are comfortable with and understand. So that's the first thing. There's no point coming in with language that's just not relevant to our industry. The second thing is that trusted intermediaries are really important. So that's where your consultants, your Landcare facilitators, they need to be comfortable with this tool, with any tool, in fact, before they can go and talk to their producers about it. And we need to support, so Landcare Australia, we know we need to support those trusted intermediaries. So that's why we're working with Ruminati, and we've had a few, you know, workshops and support sessions with facilitators so they get to know what this is about, so that then they can go to their producers. So anyone in the room, let's talk about that, because if you're interested, Ruminati have been really generous with that. We've had some really funny sessions with Bill lately. Bill Finley, he's a great bloke, but some of the funny questions that come up, because there's no such thing as a stupid question around this. It's such a new and different thing, and Bill is really, he's a producer as well. The ethos of Ruminati was by producers for producers, wasn't it? And this is the thing: all the people on the team are producers, so the questioning is really relevant to us. So the other thing is with the Ruminati team, we do a lot of sort of online Zoomy workshops. They're still one-on-one, but online. But we also have an arrangement where, you know what, if we need to send one of the team to White Cliffs, let's talk about that, okay? Because we just basically, because sometimes it's got to be face-to-face. We do know that our producers often need to be in the room breathing the same air. So please come and talk to us at Landcare, and we're working with Ruminati to make that available because we need to bring producers onto this journey if they want to, okay? And the last thing is that, we all know that there is a huge demand for this information. So we need to support you guys, Landcare facilitators and consultants, to help your producers to engage with this. Producers like Mel Leather is kind of ahead of the game a bit here. She's probably already doing a lot of this stuff. So we probably would go straight to Mel, but with some of our producers out there that are they're just wondering, it's working with their facilitators that will actually, get that connection happening. So we're hoping that this pilot that we're doing with Ruminati will just, set up some real efficiencies around how we support producers and facilitators to step into this emissions space. So how you can get involved? Well, Will and I are here. So please, just come and talk to us, okay? Look, I will put up my contact details after this. Give me a call, send me an email. Let's talk. Like, there's always a way to solve these things, okay? And like I said, we're not saying this is a one and only, but this is an opportunity to dip your toe in the water, okay? And let's make the most of this opportunity to do that and to support. The other thing is, as well as us getting data to support our work, it's a flow. So the data goes back to the Landcare groups as well, like on the ground, like your group. So you get good data. When you go to apply for funding, you've got data that says this is the impact that our group is having on the emissions profile in our area. So that's important too.
This, if we continue to get support, we can get to here. You can look forward in time and start to model what future investment would look like. I think it's getting people to the start line in a way that's comfortable and low impost, which is what, and full credit to you, Ange, and the team. That's what you guys have been able to do really successfully.
Thanks, Will. Well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? You'd hear it, and a lot of us in the room probably hear it. We can debate about which calculator is the best calculator, and that's fine, but actually when it boils down to it, let's just jump in and start, dip your toe in the water. So whether it's Ruminati, and if it's not Ruminati, work with your producers and choose another tool and just help them get into that sphere and start to understand it. So they can know what the next steps are before that carrot turns into a great big warty. Okay. Anyway, have you got anything else to say, Will?
That's it from me.
I'll hand it over to you guys to ask questions.
Thanks, Will and Ange. Gillian Mabram from Southern Queensland Landscapes. We've been working with the Cotton RDC on a methodology to help producers identify potential biodiversity options on their property, so at property and then landscape scale. Will, do you see any ability to, and keeping it simple and producer-led, to bolt on an opportunity there where producers can look across their place and fully understand the what-if scenario if they're going to engage in nature-positive markets?
Short answer is yes, I do. I think had a great conversation and caught up with a mob from Grovia that seemed to be able to do that at, I think, a really sophisticated level. I think the long-term aspiration for us is to have, a farm profile in which you have the commodities that you're dealing with, and maybe it's the emissions intensities that you're producing, but also all of these other suite of options that are available to you: biodiversity, natural capital, emissions. I think that there's abilities to do farm assurance checks in that profile and audits. And so emissions is a fraction of the conversation, but it's all the same information, let's be honest. It's the same data that's being handled 15 times by 30 different people. I just think that needs to come to an end, and we just need to be able to have one centralised place for a producer to do what they need to do so they can go back to producing. And biodiversity is a big part of that. And certainly the customers that we deal with are very quickly transitioning away from this singular view on carbon to natural capital, and how can we bring all of this together? So yes.
Thanks, Will. Congratulations too to Ruminati. It really is a very easy to use tool.
Thank you.
And one that I think most producers should absolutely have a go at, and I think they'll be pleasantly surprised at the ease of use with it. Just one thing producers do get frustrated with is the amount of data that we're collecting on different platforms. And could you just tell us a little bit about how Ruminati integrates with other platforms that we might be using so that we don't have to double up? And, you know, things like herd inventory, and that is easily just a plug in with your system.
Yeah, so definitely, again, like I do this for a living as a cattle producer, so we're all exposed to this at Ruminati, of the triple handling of data. So integrations with farm management software like AgWorld, AgriWeb, even eLinks at the feedlot level, we're now sort of able to bring all of that in and populate 90% of the emissions reporting that needs to be done. But in doing so, the user actually gets a whole heap of other insights in their business, which can then be used for further purposes or repurposed. And so the more that, Sam said it earlier, but like data's just data, it doesn't mean anything, it's just a number. You need to get value or information or insights out of the data, and plugging stuff into ABC platform, whether that's ours or someone else's, if you've already done it and you're finding a use for it, let's not do that again. So we integrate with a fair few of those farm management softwares now, and then it's also the ability, you're probably an exception, Mel, and I'd be guilty of this, like it's not a native thing for a lot of producers to be in there doing this work, but they have people in their business that do it. And so what we've developed now is for accountants and third party to come in with the consent and permission of the user to say, hey, I'm actually going to get my accountant. 82% of the information you need to produce an emissions report, you have to report to the government for your tax. So you've already got most of it. It's a few other things about opening and closing stock inventory, and that's it. So why aren't we getting the accountants to come in? They're good at doing accounting, hopefully. And you know, they're a service provider to your business. So let's get them involved in this conversation and collaborate in a place where there's governance and security and control for the user, not spreadsheets flying around the internet with private, sort of very sensitive information. That's the solution. That's value for everyone. So our goal is to integrate, and we already have sort of part the way there, but allow your banking partners to come in, with your informed consent, to come in and do this work for you. Yeah.
Yeah, probably just add sort of a financier's view as well in terms of use cases for baseline carbon calculation emissions, and insofar as access to sustainability finance. So we would absolutely encourage landholders, farmers to have a baseline. So you're understanding, we've heard some fantastic examples of interventions that are happening which are having really great results, but actually understanding what the starting position is, what's working, what happens if I pull this lever or that lever. Yeah. All banks are in the process at the moment, all major banks in Australia, Rabobank included, are looking at how we can implement the new Australian Sustainable Finance Institute taxonomy, which has a whole bunch of technical screening criteria around activities across all ag sectors, and that starts with having a baseline emissions. And so this is a way, it's still keeping that carrot theme in terms of, well, how can you access sustainable finance, and having a calculation is a really key starting point. Essential,
Yep, agree.
And just to say how ahead of the game we are, sometimes the policymakers aren't quite as far in front as we are, but we put an application in about 12 months ago, didn't we? SIBO Labs, Farm Lab, Ruminati, us, Accounting for Nature. Yeah. I think that was about it. It was basically about how can we generate a sustainability report so producers don't have to keep re-entering stuff all of the time. Unfortunately, even though it was a very good application, we thought, and I think it was, it didn't get through. But I mean, the Canberra bubble needs to catch up with us. But this is where we're going. We do need to be able to sort of generate a sustainability report by having all that data being able to be connected. So anyway, just saying that, look, we are organisations like the ones in front of you and other ones that you work with. We do want that to happen. I guess we'll just keep chipping away at it.
It's a collaborative thing. Like, no one's going to have all the answers. I think, was there one more question? at the back.
Yeah, this probably isn't even a fair question to ask you, to be honest. I was wondering about, but you might have some insight, so it's crossing my fingers.
Yeah.
Around the standard calculator, is there input from the other end as well? So we want this adopted by producers to make it simple and standard and usable across the board. Are they then going to have a problem going to different processes in the cattle industry, for example, having that same standard calculation?
So I think we've been quite clever here, and nothing to do with us. The industry's been quite clever and being very patient with adopting an approach. In the US, we were over there a year or so ago, and there was like 42 different calculations for the one soil carbon project that all spat out a different number that were completely unverified, and it's just random. But here, the methodology that is used to calculate anything comes from the IPCC standards. That's then turned into like some pretty heavy-duty academic work that is then applied to the sector. So, short answer is no. The gap is that not everyone understands that, and so you might provide your ABC calculated emissions to meat processor ABC, and they say, oh no, we don't use that one. But it shouldn't be. It should be if you've used the standard, whoever has used the standard, you're good to go. And so there is actually no, to get a bit technical, there's one standard, there's one way to calculate it. There's just not clear guidance on how to interpret that standard into software. And so there's different ways to do it, and then someone puts a different zero here or interprets it this way. It's actually around the wording of, if I ask you, what's your average daily gain on a breeder? Well, a lot of people don't weigh breeders. So should we just have an average weight on, what size cow is it? And then we can determine things from that. So that type of thing is where the errors or the differences come out. But it's all actually compliant. Long answer to your question, sorry. Does that help? The short answer is yes, they should. Yeah. And you can have a good argument with them if they don't.
Yeah, good. And probably one other thing, I don't know if anyone knows, but on the board of Ruminati is Richard Eckhart and John Francis. They're two of some of the smarter people that I know. So this calculator is backed by some good scientists.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah.
You can't be arguing about the calculation. It's just got to be yesterday's news.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
I'll give you back your notes now, Ange.
Hey.
I'll give you back your notes that I
Thank you.
didn't
We
stick
didn't
to
get
at
on
all.
it. Thank you for that.